It's a pleasure being here. I'd like to thank everyone who has supported me during my incarceration. And I'd just like to say that in Iran, things are much more complicated and worse than they are in Egypt. As bad as I had it, at least I had the luxury, if you want to compare it to Saeed's case, that I was actually in a cage in the court. Media is there, they're talking to me, I'm able to give my opinion and express my fears from inside the cage, but at least my family knew I was alive and I was breathing. In Saeed's case, it's horrific. I can't even imagine it. So this is me talking after spending 438 days in prison. I also want to say that humanizing the prisoner is very important. I have been in contact with Mariam, where we live in Vancouver, and we've been working together and advocating and making noise and trying to get the government's attention. But just being here today and meeting some of the prisoners that actually met and lived with Saeed inspired me even more, because now I am realizing what kind of human being he is. And this is the whole issue here. Yes, there is no evidence, but people don't know that. People will say, "Oh, and I've been advocating for his case. Well, he confessed. This guy's guilty." So when they hear this congregation here today and follow what we're doing, that clarifies a lot of the issues, and it inspires more of the members of parliament to intervene, and it sends a message to the journalists that maybe we should pay attention to this human being because he is innocent. And I would have to agree very much so with Mr. Hamid when what he said at the podium here, that many of these cases are political hostages. There's a very similar case of Jason Rezaian, an Iranian American who was detained in Iran for 400 plus days. He was a journalist for Washington Post, and he was released on the day the sanctions were lifted, and when the US and Iran came to an agreement during the nuclear agreement. And later on, there was news reports that stated that the US paid Iran $400,000 that they owed them, and it wasn't very clear. So there is a trend. I don't know if it's specifically related to Jason Rezaian, but there is a trend where prisoners are bargaining chips. And if Saeed Malikpour was a bargaining chip, and if his detention was intended to send a message to the world, he's been inside for 8 years, and I think this, whatever this message is, it has been delivered already. To go back and just highlight my impression of the Liberal government here, I believe that the Liberal government is much more responsive and more aggressive than the previous government, and the numbers and the facts speak for that. Ms. Huma's presence here, and Mr. And several others, people, Khaled Kazaz and Mr. Garrett from China. But I have a small question, and it boggles my mind a little bit, because I'm following several cases with the people at my foundation. We have a case of Mr. Raif Badawi. He is a Saudi blogger, and he has never set foot in Canada. His wife has been very active. She's been granted political asylum in Quebec. And I'm very grateful, and we're all very happy that Mr. Dion has raised his case publicly in the media. He had intervened in Saudi Arabia and spoken to the ambassadors, and it's made the headlines that Canada is asking for the release of Mr. Raif Badawi. I would hope that the Liberal government would do the same for Mr. Saeed Malikpour, because this man is a man who passed the requirements to even enter Canada as a permanent resident. He lived here, he worked here, he proved that he's a productive member of society. His sister lives in Vancouver. We're all vouching for him. We want him to be back. So I do hope that the Liberal government does mention his name and talk about him, and make sure that in the next phase of negotiations over the political talks for establishing either the embassy or improving relations, and these are very vibrant times with what's happening in the US and Canada, and that his name is brought up, because that is the only way he will be released. When the Iranians realize that his name is in the media, that he is causing them trouble, that he is an issue, and that he is someone that the Canadians want out. And I really would like to congratulate his sister, Mariam, because it's incredibly difficult for family members and to see their loved ones in prison, especially if you're innocent. And it is very clear that he is a hostage. There is no trial whatsoever. There is no even a file that you can read to begin defending him as a lawyer. So and just one last thing I realize as well before I end my quick speech here is that in the foundation where we have a foundation in Vancouver, I've realized that 90% of the people who access the foundation are from Iran. It's quite interesting that so many Iranians are engaged and they access the website's foundation, not just to read about Saeed, but to read about many other prisoners that we are fighting for, including Raif Badawi and some prisoners in Egypt and in Turkey and in many countries. And this really sends a message that there are very engaged Iranians who understand the importance of human rights and who understand that Saeed is innocent. And I'm very happy that there are sites that translate from Persian to English and so on, because communication and clarity in message and the advocacy is what's going to bring Saeed back home the way I was brought back and Ms. Huma was brought back. Thank you.